Hello everyone, my name is Chrisa Lajou and along with my colleagues Maria Psychogiou and Anna Krasa, we have prepared this presentation. I am an English language teacher and a graduate student at Athabasca University. I'm really happy and honored to be connected with you here today as to present a case study that elaborates on a project that took place in a long-term accommodation center in Kavala in 2017. The main focus of this project was to introduce refugee students to host country education and provide opportunities for educational and social inclusion. Non-formal and individualized blended learning and mobile learning was implemented as mobile phones and internet access were available. More specifically, the unexpected influx of migrants and refugees in Greece in 2015-2016 raised a crisis situation and much consideration as to how to more smoothly integrate the newly arrived, quite diverse population. According to official data, approximately 1 million people crossed the Greek-Turkish border in 2015-2016, seeking for greener lands in Western Europe. In March 2016, the closure of the Balkan border traps the population that did not manage to leave the country. The coordinating body for refugee crisis in Greece stated that the total number of refugees in Greece by April 2017 was 62,257 people, of whom 37% were children. As reported by the General Secretariat for Media and Communication on Refugee Arrivals, 46% of the new arrived population comes from Syria, 24% from Afghanistan, 15% from Iraq, 5% from Pakistan, and 3% from Iran. Given this new reality, the Ministry of Education appointed a scientific committee in support of refugee children, and in support to this, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs of the U.S. Embassy in Athens organized a program, International Visitor Leadership Program, with the participation of 5 delegates. I was one of them, as I was the chairperson of the Association of State School Teachers of English Language in Kavala at that time. And I had the opportunity to visit some of the most diverse international schools and organizations in Northern America, in major cities such as Seattle, Atlanta, and New York, where large numbers of refugees and migrants have settled. My observations helped me profile refugee youth who had experienced the effects of war, violence, and trauma. It is worth mentioning that these students had difficulty in concentrating during sessions. They seemed to be intimidated of new situations. They displayed distrust and quite often lack of emotions. Additionally, it was observed that they couldn't recall information and at times misbehaved due to uncontrollable emotions. It was repeatedly noted that they had heightened sensitivity to issues of fairness as they feel that life is too hard for them and their families. As a consequence, the effects these characteristics may have on their education are not difficult to assume. Due to their limited or interrupted formal education, there is age-grade misplacement and cognitive mismatch. Quite a number of students had never had any education before, which means that they have illiteracy in their native language. Another major barrier in school attendance was observed to be the cultural and socioeconomic disparities that discourage students from balancing school and family life in the new country. So how can we educators help these dislocated people enter mainstream education? Quoting Big, students have to Maslow before they bloom. Expecting someone to achieve high levels of creativity, basic needs and core values have to be prioritized and satisfied. According to Ryan, fundamental criteria in developing an inclusive educational setting on behalf of the educator are to show respect for diversity and kindness. It is the educator's responsibility to apply pedagogy that appreciates diversity and identifies skills and talents that boost learners' self-esteem, allows for success, and thus encourages lifelong learning. As to achieve this, an educator takes advantage of any medium available at that time. On my arrival back to Greece, though still at my full-time job at my school, I tried to recruit colleagues as to voluntarily offer English language lessons at the long-term accommodation center. After having asked the permit of the Ministry of Migration and the International Organization for Migration to allow entrance to the accommodation center, along with other members of the association, we decided to help these people. The main objectives of the project were to make them feel welcome and introduce them to host country education and their new reality, fostering at the same time social inclusion opportunities. The implementation of the project was initiated with a welcome celebration, which was followed by an introductory lesson as to help us conduct needs analysis assessment before proceeding with the language lessons. There were 80 refugee children living in the accommodation center at that time. At the same time, there were multiple obstacles to be surpassed, including diversity in demographics. Nevertheless, we observed that most of them had smartphones, as they were of the few personal, easily portable belongings that they could bring with them. There was free internet access available throughout the camp, and that was a blessing at the time, as it could help cope with some of these barriers. Upon this observation, a bring-your-own device was encouraged, though not imposed. Of course, even in crisis situation, behind the scenes of any spontaneous effort to help, there is a theory to rely on. With this media available, teachers leveraged mobile and blended learning strategies to facilitate inclusive educational practices. Inclusive education encompasses the idea of belonging and relies on the premise of zero rejection. Blended learning is defined as the educational approach which integrates face-to-face education with online and mobile delivery methods. This accurately describes the educational method used in our case. In all of these cases, teachers' laptops and smartphones have been used to support their collaboration during the implementation project and later on to disseminate the outcomes of this experience. Of course, it is not the technology that matters, but actually the knowledge and learning opportunities it supports, ameliorating barriers. Student smartphones have been used to facilitate word translation, access to educational resources, and social networking. All teachers shared an electronic document that served as keeping track of the students' progress, if the objectives have been met, and thus be flexible in the instructional design. This shared document was daily informed and facilitated the smooth implementation of the project. Additionally, it served as a journal, as all participants kept record and reflected to incidents, behavioral or psychological, that might have arisen. Additionally, due to lack of a permanent teacher, it further facilitated the team to be prepared as to what to expect and how to respond in cases of behavioral or psychological crisis. In collaboration with the IOM team of psychologists and social workers, identified non-educational issues that hindered the refugee learners' progress could be better handled. According to Villa and Thousand, teachers working together to plan lessons as well as co-teaching are practices touted as important ingredients for inclusive education to work. Even in face-to-face instruction, migrants and refugees may not be able to understand due to language limitations. The use of mobile devices helps them considerably as to understand abstract notions on demand using word reference or Google Translate. Mobile technologies provide easy access to reference materials such as dictionaries and websites with cultural context. Teachers further encourage their learners to make good use of their mobile devices as to enhance language learning opportunities. They send them quizzes and games, provided them with links to digital educational resources such as videos, songs, and even movies according to language level. That practice could help them accelerate language learning in an informal educational context, thus facilitate communication in the host country. Polaris contends that mobile learning enables learners to make good use of their dead or idle time, regardless of temporal or spatial factors as far as there is connectivity. This can involve formal, non-formal, or informal context, providing brief ad hoc learnable moments and more substantial stretches of learning within or behind schedules. The context to be delivered can be a video relevant to a piece of information that is chunked up in knowledge the learner was acquainted with during a session, and the desire to enhance learning according to needs and interests. It could also be an interaction in social network or blogs, where exchange of ideas and pieces of information build real and lifelong experiences. Students made frequent reference to visual cues as well as information and knowledge gained from songs and videos that allowed for a multisensory approach to flourish, enhance their vocabulary and language acquisition, which was particularly useful when building productive skills such as speaking and writing. Refugee students had the opportunity to use their phones for social inclusion as well. For instance, in the celebration of the European Day of Languages on the 26th of September last year, refugees still attended special transition classes before entering mainstream education. The celebration was a wonderful opportunity for them to meet our regular students, take part in the drawing competition, play games and especially their own game, introducing their languages and cultures to the local community. More specifically, we collaborated with the IOM team and prepared a poster and a game, a story with the theme "Everyone Smiles in the Same Language." Students made good use of their smartphones as to look for online resources and translators as to create their interactive story, which was simultaneously translated into 4 languages, that is Greek, English, Arabic, and Farsi. We all had a great time, and teachers and administrators were more than pleased to see that these people mingled with our Greek students. Some of them asked to be volunteers, so they all wore the same t-shirts and caps. They used their mobile phones to facilitate communication, exchange contact information, and keep in touch with their new friends. This way, they established their own communication channels. One of the most encouraging outcomes of the effort to socially integrate migrants and refugees in Kavala is the hosting of an art exhibition with paintings created by a most talented Pakistani young man, Mohammed Suleiman. He is one of the residents of the long-term accommodation center, and he is a student of ours in the mainstream education now. His work has much been praised and going to be exhibited in many major cities around the country. It was locally welcomed, but internet and social media helped him to increase its popularity. During the last 2 years, the refugee students have attended special transition classes due to language barriers. Efforts have been met with success, as approximately 8,000 refugee and migrant children entered mainstream education in academic year 2017-2018, and this year the number has increased to 9,000 students. But mobile learning has gone far from the initial program implementation. Several students, from those who participated in the camp language lessons, remain connected with their volunteer teachers through social networks. This gives teachers the opportunity not only to keep social bonds with them, but also quickly share with them interesting resources and material, helping them develop a lifelong learning attitude. All in all, the benefits of this endeavor, though based on an individual effort with some fervent supporters and enthusiasts, are multifaceted. First and foremost, leveraging mobile devices, apart from encouraging non-formal personalized learning, help them accelerate language learning, learn how to learn, instigate an inner drive to keep contact with new acquaintances, and proudly exhibit their artistic work. At the same time, the volunteer teachers had the opportunity, though not intentionally, to get trained and disseminate new knowledge and inclusive strategies to their schools as to facilitate this population's inclusion in mainstream education. Thank you. I would be really glad to respond to any questions. Thank you.